This episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast is brought to you by BetUS.
Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy Jonathan Macri with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We are doing it one last time. That's what somebody said. Building another Hall of Fame, as Andrew gives me this, and Benji gives both of them. I got two sets of side eyes, so that's 4 side eyes. Let me introduce the esteemed guests of the panel today for our final Hall of Fame episode before we actually talk about who we're building a Hall of Fame to. Andrew, I just saw you earlier today, so I'm going to start with Benji. Hi, Benjy Ritholtz of Knicks Film School and life in general. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm good. I'm recovering from a pneumonia for the first time that I can remember. So that is hasn't been so fun. And if I cough a little bit on this podcast, I apologize. But I am recovering, and it's been a minute since I've been able to talk some basketball. So I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite characters in the whole NBA.
2 things. Number one, it has been a while. The last time I was on with you it's been a while. It's been over a month, right?
Yeah. I popped on, I think the last time I popped on for the Bridges post reaction. So I think that was pretty much it.
The last time?
Yeah, man. I've been hibernating.
Yeah, well, I know, but I was trying to remember if there was some other time during the summer, right? Yeah, no, it's been a hot minute, but it's good because other than the whole pneumonia thing, it's good time to recharge your batteries. But the second thing I was going to say is it's appropriate that you were recovering from some malady and you are not 100%, and yet you are giving it a go out there tonight, given who we are here to talk about. So I will just leave it at that. Andrew Claudio, hello, sir.
Hello, Benji. So glad you're toughing it out, as John said. And yeah, it's been a while since we've seen you. The last time that you were here and the 3 of us were together, we established how much blacker John is than all of us. So I'm glad we had that moment. And now a month later, you be the judge of who may potentially be darker.
Well, we did get on here. I did note that Andrew looked very tan.
Yeah.
And he said you should point that out to Jonathan. You should really point that out.
Mr. Black, yes.
I'm not as tan as I was probably a week ago. Coming back from my last, actually not even like middle of last week. I think I was considerably tanner than I am now. I do see some of the other gentlemen of Brooklyn running through Brooklyn Bridge Park with their just shorts, no shirt. I am not at a place where I feel comfortable doing that. Otherwise, I would still be I think tanner than I am. Alas, I guess blackery dies a slow death.
Not necessarily dies in the darkness, is what you're saying.
I mean, has it risen to the light? Is that where we're getting?
There we go.
There it is. Okay, we're off to a rousing start. We are building a Josh Hart Hall of Fame. And we are building a Josh Hart Hall of Fame for 2 reasons, I think. And then we'll get some quick Josh Hart impressions, and then we'll get right to it. First reason is I don't think there's a better option. Because if you look at the rest, of the team, the guys that have been here for more than just one season, I would argue that like they don't really have the resume to build what would be a true Hall. Like I'm sure we could build a Deuce Hall of Fame. I'm sure we could build a Mitch Hall of Fame. I'm not sure if that really lights a fire under me myself. That's just me. Others may disagree. But the second reason, and why I think this is a worthwhile episode doing, and this is what I'm going to ask Benji before we start. I think Josh Hart is unlike basically any other player in the NBA. And I think that is what makes building a Hall of Fame to him an interesting exercise, because you are, while he has accumulated certainly some good box scores over the course of his time here in New York, he's not a box score guy necessarily. Is there anybody else who you would even put, like, who? I don't know. Who else comes to mind when you think of Josh Hart and what he brings to the table? Because I personally can't think of anyone.
You could point to someone like Draymond, and he also can accumulate some great stat lines, but sometimes his like 4.9 rebounds, 6 assists game can be as impactful as anybody on the floor other than maybe Steph on a given night. That's kind of like the one comp that comes to mind for a guy who doesn't put up big numbers. The offense sometimes looks really ugly, and yet still more often than not, far more often than not, makes a tremendously positive impact on every game he plays in. So he is unique in that way. And I love talking about him for that reason. I think he's such a unique player. And I think his fit on this team is such a unique situation, similar to Draymond in some ways. And I agree with you, though. I think that's why it's fun to talk about him specifically.
Andrew, how many times will I become angsty this season? And during how many post games will I become angsty this season, arguing with folks about whether or not Josh Hart played too many minutes in a game?
I'm going to quote one of our mutually favorite movies, John, from the great Mean Girls. There's a line where Lindsay Lohan once answers a question with, "The limit does not exist." The limit does not exist, John. I feel like this is a fight worth fighting. Good things just happen when Josh Hart is on the floor. And while there is a deficiency in his game during the regular season when it comes to shooting, and sometimes it can get a little crowded in the paint and on the court when you put him next to a Julius Randle or a true center. He still somehow ends up with the most important rebound of the night or starting the most important fast break of the night. And there's a reason why Steve Kerr, with so many options on FIBA 2 years ago, was like, I'm putting Josh Hart on the floor because I need him out there. And there's a reason why Steve Kerr, like in the most recent iteration of Team USA, made a point to talk about Josh Hart and what him not being here means and how he would get the 30-70 balls. And for those who have watched Ted Lasso, I made the joke I sent out the day the Knicks got Josh Hart is that it's the Roy Kent chant, but instead of Roy Kent, it's Josh Hart. He's here, he's there, he's every bleeping where Josh Hart. And it's been a joy so far as I'm concerned since he's been here.
It has. I am curious though, because, and Benji, chime in. I'm curious if you disagree on this. I think in pretty much every game where he's gotten like a ton of playing time, there's a credible basketball case to be made that like he's the best option. And I wonder, with the acquisition of Bridges, assuming everybody on the roster is healthy, I wonder how much that case takes a hit this season. And the only case really is basically what Andrew just said. It's like he's out there because you're just counting on him doing something out of nowhere that like turns a possession and maybe turns the game. Like, do you see what I'm getting to here?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be, I think what's going to be interesting is, and I know this is kind of like the sub conversation now of Knicks offseason, is how often do they go small?
Yeah.
And then if they go small, how important is it to have Josh Hart's rebounding and like versatility defensively versus, say, DiVincenzo's shooting?
Or Randall's shot creation, because I think there are universes where, as we've talked about, maybe Randall isn't on the floor in some.
Absolutely. Exactly right. So where does Josh Hart fit into those lineups? And to me, I think he fits in great. And I actually think having him as kind of, you can almost use him as a primary screener in those scenarios with or without Randall, and have him rolling into space now. And he doesn't have to space, right? Because everyone else can shoot it and everyone else can play with the ball. That might actually be the best situation for him offensively. And we know what he can do on the other end of the floor and on the boards on both ends. So he's versatile enough where like he'll find, I mean, he can be good in any lineup. We've seen that even if the spacing is crunched and he's not an ideal fit on offense, like he'll find a way to make an impact. Yeah. But I think now this team can find lineups where he's actually in a perfect spot, and can can really lean into all of his strengths while covering up the weaknesses. So it's going to be interesting to see how Tibbs juggles all that.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Could very well be the motto of this next season. All right, let's get into this. We're going to do this the same way we did the Brunson Hall of Fame. We're basically going to go through almost a year and a half worth of game logs for Josh Hart. Not literally going over every single one, but we are going to go through his Knicks career chronologically and see what games we are putting in automatically. I don't know how many of those there will be. And then which ones require further conversation. I think I will just say, I think this is going to be a challenge from this perspective. We, in different ways, in the two Hall of Fames we've done, we've tried to build a representative sample size of both regular season and postseason. It's going to be very tough to not make this extremely postseason heavy, which is not to say that he doesn't have big regular season performances, but there's some all timers.
But you're hitting at it. Like the Brunson one was a celebration of the new captain, right? Like
yes.
There was we had 24 options to try and get down to 10, and there really was only 6 or 7 that you knew going in. Like this has to be a lock, and then
they're automatics, yeah.
But just like there was like 7 or 8 where you could have been like, yeah, this could be in, but we'll pick a different one, and this could also be in. And with Randall, it was, I mean, I hope Julius has a great season and changes this, but it was largely a regular season Hall of Fame. The beauty of the Josh Hart Hall of Fame is I'm very curious how many of these are playoff games, because as much as we talk about his shooting during the regular season and some of the slumps that he'll go through, the man turns into Klay Thompson in the playoffs. And maybe even more accurately, Robert Horry, big shot Josh Hart.
And by the way, he's so special in this way. He's been doing this since college.
Yeah.
Every college season, this guy rose significantly in percentage from 3 and overall percentage. Big East tournament into the tournament. Like, he has been a postseason riser forever. And it is a part of who he is. It's an awesome element of who he is that he is able to somehow find a version of himself in the postseason that is beyond what he normally does. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's get to it because we do have a lot of games to go through. So we're going to start at the top with this first game with the Knicks. And I think right off the bat, I'm thinking I'm going to be arguing that this should be a green, which is the first game in the Garden against the Utah Jazz. It's not the stat line. I mean, again, I could say that probably for a lot of these games. He had 11 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, did 4 steals in that game. I'm not sure he's ever had more than that as a Knick. But this to me was, I mean, if I'm using movie analogies for directors, this was, Sidney Lumet directing 12 Angry Men. This was Greta Gerwig directing Lady Bird. This was Jordan Peele directing Get Out. Like, this as a first feature to come out of the gate and already have the entire city of New York eating out of your freaking hands. That does not happen very often. And this is, I think, one of the all-time legendary Knick debuts. Andrew, what do you say? I
wrote this game down sight unseen because of the same things you're mentioning. The memory of that fourth quarter where, he had 4 offensive rebounds that game. I want to say 3 of them were in the final moments where he needed to put the game away. And that's where the tweet I just mentioned came from, where I just like, oh, he's here, he's there, he's every bleeping where. Right. The fact that we talked about this on the Jalen Brunson Hall of Fame episode, the Clipper game a week earlier, where they needed to get a rebound down the stretch and didn't get it. And then you fast forward to this, and now we have the guy that's always going to get the rebounds that you need.
RJ missed that rebound, if I recall.
Yes. We don't have to bring up No. I agree with you. But I believe there was a lot of games that were going forward after this where RJ didn't play in crunch time because we had the guy that was going to get the big rebound. And that's honestly why the playoffs were so fascinating, which we'll obviously get to. because RJ became a floor spacer. He became a shot maker, and you kind of needed him and Josh Hart on the floor at the same time. And then, the rest is history.
You remember this game, Benji?
Was this Utah? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My mic got disconnected for a second. Yeah, I have this written down as a lock, even though the box score isn't anything special. But it was so obviously, because you recall, obviously, like going into it, you get the Brunson video when he finds out.
Oh, Josh Hart. Yes! What? Oh my God. Knicks got Josh Hart.
That whole lead up into it, like the excitement Brunson felt.
Yep.
And again, like what makes this special, what makes like Josh Hart a special Knick is that this like crazy Villanova connection, the fact that it becomes more than the sum of its parts because there's a chemistry that you cannot measure. And Josh Hart is a player you really can't measure very effectively with just numbers. And this game was a great example of it, where he just like made a tremendous impact without any numbers that would blow you away, but just made the winning plays. It was so representative, and it was right there in front of you. It happened. It was like, oh, this makes sense. This is why he's here. This is perfect. And so yeah, I have this one as a lock. But let me flash back for a second because I have a wild card choice. Can I do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
What? Sure.
Can I take us back to the last game Josh Hart played against the Knicks?
Oh my God.
November.
You want to include a
November
I know the game.
25th,
Yeah.
2022.
Did he have 20 rebounds in that game?
He had 19 rebounds. He had 10 points, 19 rebounds, 4 assists. And I think Tibbs said on that very day, this man will be mine. This man will be mine one day.
We will put that as an honorary yellow for the Hall of Fame.
Honorary yellow.
I don't think we can break the rules to have a non-Knick game go in to Josh Hart's Knick Hall of Fame, but that's a great call, Ben.
Because if you recall that game, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. He was everywhere, flying around like a total maniac. This 6'5", and I was a Josh Hart appreciator. I see him here and there. I watched him on the Lakers, watched him on the I didn't understand the full Josh Hart experience until I saw that game. And like it colored even like when they actually made the trade, I was like, oh, like we're getting an energy that is different and special than what anyone else has in the league. So just wanted to shout it out.
It's a great shout out. Moving right along, his second game with the Knicks. And then after this game is when I started getting emails from some of the old timers being like, this is Dave DeBusschere 2.0. So against the Nets, what ended up being a Knick romp, Josh Hart puts up 27 points on a 10 of 14 shooting, including making 4 of 6 from 3 in what would quickly become a theme for him. And he didn't miss any 3-pointers he took once he put on an uniform. This was his highest scoring game of the year. Yeah, I'm double checking. Yeah. In fact, I don't think he scored over 20. No, sorry. He had 21 points in a game that the Blazers played against Washington. Other than that, this is the only time all season he scored above 20 points. Andrew, what do you remember about this one?
What you just mentioned. I remember going on playback for this that night, and the both of you, it was actually us 3 on playback, and the both of you just watching him hit threes, and it's like, oh, he could do that too. Like, I didn't know we were getting a shooter while we were at it. And obviously the Mikal Bridges of it all matters because there was a net now over there that went to Villanova and potentially needed to no longer be over there. But I also think this is the first time post KD trade that it had happened, that the Knicks had beaten the Nets. And part of the reclaiming or the reordering of things in this city was the Knicks now have like the culture and the vibes, and we have Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, And now the Knicks have finally, after 12 straight losses to the Nets, beaten them. And this was in convincing fashion. And who knew back then that the Villanova connection was going to get even stronger?
Yeah. I mean, there was a period of time where his left corner three specifically, it was absolutely automatic. And we were all just like, he had shot poorly, and I think the Knicks expected some reversion to the mean. Like, he hadn't shot well that year and he was better, he's whatever, a 32% career shooter, if I recall. So they expected some uptick and they got it right away in this game. And then several others during the quick win streak they went on right when they got him. I mean, he made every shot, but he was also doing all the other things. Yeah, I mean, this one I also had as a lock because oh yeah, I mean, first of all, just like the shooting display was crazy. He ends up with 27 points. It's not going to happen very often. And Brooklyn's in the house. It's in the Garden. The place is going out. I just remember the atmosphere was electric. Fans were really, really excited about this. It all felt like preordained that he would come here and do what he was doing. So I thought that was a very meaningful game, and I have it in.
Yeah, a lock. Okay.
I'm comfortable greening it just because, again, the whole Josh Hart thing of last year, it was how it started. Like once the tidal wave got going, it's like you couldn't stop it. So I think the beginning of it was just so freaking important. I just looked it up. He, in his first 3 games as a Knick, because he made 2 threes against Utah, 4 threes against the Nets, and made 3 threes the very next game against the Hawks. Those 9 threes in 3 games were as many threes as he had made in the previous 15 games for the Portland Trailblazers. So, all right,
real quick. Yeah, can we explain, just in case people are tuning in for the first time?
We didn't explain
the green versus yellow thing, and then I'll just say this is a yellow for me.
Okay, it's a green if it's a lock. That it is one of the 10, and we're not saying we'll see what else comes up. We'll if it's yellow, it is under consideration. Now, again, we take inspiration from the big picture doing this. They have turned greens into yellows and I guess effectively reds before, so it's not like it's locked until it's locked at the end. But I think for now, I'm comfortable greening it.
I'm just reminding you, but we have a lot of playoff games to get to.
Well,
Josh Hart. Okay.
I think we could get through the rest of this regular season pretty quickly. I'm going to actually just say, so those are the first 2 games of what would be a 9-game winning streak. The following wins would be a blowout win against the Hawks, a win in Washington, in which Josh Hart had a very, very piddling stat line. Then home wins against the this is after the All-Star break. The Washington win, the Pelicans win, where the whole team played incredible. Win against Boston at home, win against Brooklyn at home, and then the Julius shot against the Heat, and then the IQ game against Boston. That was double overtime. Josh Hart only played 39 minutes and 46 seconds in that game. Any other games from the streak that go in for you guys?
No, the only one I thought about was the first Boston win.
First Boston game. Okay.
Yeah,
that was a Julius game.
Julius had 23 and 7. I didn't remember the game that well, but I was kind of looking back. Josh Hart was 5 for 8, 2 for 3 from 3, obviously, plus 15, 12, 5 and 5 in 27 minutes. Just like a classic Josh Hart, make a huge impact off the bench. Quickly was also great in that game. Was 7 for 13.
This was when Quickly was
23, 3 and 2. And beat Boston, who was the best team in the league at the time. But there are a lot of games to get to. I wouldn't put it in.
Yeah. I would also just, the only thing I remember from Josh Hart this game, as far as how the game went,
the first Boston game,
right? This first Boston game, not the actual Emmanuel Quickly game. The Knicks got up double digits in the first quarter, and it just kind of stayed that way. Like anytime the Celtics cut it down to 9, the Knicks would hit a 3 or go on a run, and it's back to 15. And the Josh Hart contribution to this game is Jason Tatum got ejected in the fourth quarter.
Oh, that's right.
Josh Hart.
That was the
sent him to the showers, and it just was the beginning of this goofball is on our side.
Yes, that's the other thing with Josh Hart is is the antics can get you Hall of Fame worthy.
There's a game coming up next season that an antic would have gotten it in the Hall of Fame alone, but he had a pretty good game besides that. We'll get to that in a bit. Okay, then the Knicks lose 3 straight to the Hornets. How the hell do we lose a game to the Hornets?
Brunson didn't play.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Brunson didn't play that game.
Andrew, you're a total freak.
I'm sorry, I remember this. That's the beauty of the Emmanuel Quickly game. Brunson
this is not... Play. Folks, this is 2023. I want to be clear.
Yeah. I also remembered that you did the post game for the Pelicans game during the streak, Benji, because that was the night of when they celebrated the 73 team, the 1973 team.
Sure.
Yeah. They blew him out. They chanted for Derrick Rose in the fourth quarter, and he actually went out and played and missed a bunch of shots, and it was awful.
I remember the first half of that Pelicans game is as dominant as they had looked all year. Coming at it, but that was a team effort. Okay, they lose a game they shouldn't have lost, but it's a come down from the IQ game in Boston, and no Brunson to the Hornets. Then they go out west and lose consecutive games to the Kings and Clippers. I do want to note it's not going in, but this was the first Mondo rebounding total game in what now? Like now you see 15 rebounds for Josh Hart, including 8 offensive rebounds, and you kind of shrug because this is what he does. But back then, 15 rebounds, 8 offensive boards, we were like, whoa, this is pretty serious stuff. That was again in a loss to the Kings.
He likes to play. He likes to play Sacramento. Good foreshadowing.
It is a good foreshadowing. Yeah.
He just likes to play Sacramento. Then they get back on their winning ways, wins against the Lakers and Portland to close out that streak. We should say his return game to Portland, he got 16 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. So the closest he had gotten to a triple-double since coming to the Knicks. He was a plus 26 in 16 minutes in that game. We could put it as an honorary yellow if you guys want, but I don't think we really need to.
The Laker game's the one that you actually would point to because I believe he hit the game clinching free throws. Like they were up by, that was a close game for most of it because again they didn't have Brunson for that entire road trip, and like RJ and Randall both had 30 and it was a Sunday night game. It was a night of the Oscars from what I remember, and RJ and Randall carried them, and then Josh Hart just needed to be like the one that got a couple rebounds and the one that made a couple shots, and he hit 1 shot and the 2 biggest free throws of the night to clinch it.
Yeah, and that was a 10-point game.
You're a freaking marvel.
I also remember the Sacramento game. They were getting killed in the first half, and then the rebounds you're talking about with Josh Hart were all part of the comeback to tie it going into the fourth.
That I do remember.
And then fourth quarter, future clutch player of the year, De'Aaron Fox showed up, and it was like, oh, this is Dwayne Wade. Got it.
So before anybody is like, two free throws to seal the deal, who cares? They were up 10 in that game after an RJ layup with 2.5 minutes to go. And then the Lakers reeled off 8 consecutive points to make things a little too close for comfort. And then Josh Hart hit the 2 free throws with 5 seconds left. So notable free throws from him. It's not going in. Okay. Then we get 3 more. Oh, excuse me. Then we get the win against Denver. I don't know, maybe the best win of the year for the Knicks. It's in the conversation, but that was a Mitch game. And then we get 3 more consecutive losses. The Julius 57-point game, right? That was the Julius 57-point game.
Minnesota.
It's Minnesota. And
so many points.
What's that?
That's so many points.
Yes, it was a lot of points. That was
ends up being the Torian Prince game, unfortunately.
Sad but true. The game at Miami that Julius, this was not the game that Julius got injured. Excuse me, I almost misspoke. This is the game where all of the wings closed it, including Josh Hart.
No, it's not. This is the game in Miami that the Knicks lost. I just remember they lost the game in Miami.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then they lost another one in Orlando where Quickly and Randall got in each other's faces. Again, Brunson didn't play.
The game I'm thinking of is coming a few games later. So Josh Hart, then when the Knicks get back on their winning ways, they beat Houston at home. Then is the Miami game where Julius gets injured and where they close with, was it Quickly, RJ, Hart, and Grimes?
Grimes and Hardenstein.
Okay. But he's like part of the ensemble for that one.
Yeah, I mean he's consistently during this stretch around 11, 7, and 3 every night. And he's playing really well, but it's not Hall of Fame worthy.
No, we could get through the rest of the regular season pretty quickly. After that was the Brunson game in Cleveland, 47 points. Talk about foreshadowing scoring exploits to come. And then the last 4 games of the season, I think the Washington win technically meant something. Josh Hart may have been on autopilot that game, scored 2 points. And then 3 games that didn't mean anything.
They clinched the 5 seed, the playoff berth with the Washington win. So you're right.
Quick break to tell you about our new friends from BetUS. Are you looking for a new book this basketball season? BetUS is the answer. They have the fastest payouts in the industry. 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,000, 200% crypto deposit bonus. Fast and easy deposit and withdrawal process. Check out my BetUS link in the description below. You get 24/7 personalized service, 365 days a year, live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business. You get 10% back on your net losses twice a year. And did you know that BetUS can give you your very own personal account manager? How about that? Okay. I'm going to bring up Andrew Claudio here because we are going to look at some current NBA odds. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
I'm good, John. How are you?
I'm okay. I don't know if you know this, but the NBA released the game schedule for all the in-season tournament games. So we know, for instance, when the Knicks are going to be playing the Hornets, Nets, Sixers, and Magic for their in-season tournament games. We're going to pick in-season tournament cup winners right now. I am looking at the odds here, which you can see as well. I don't like the Boston Celtics at plus 425 because KP is not going to probably play in any of those games. Some of these other teams, I'm not sure if the motivation is quite going to be there. Mavs just made the finals, Nuggets, recent NBA champion. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a homer. I'm going to pick the Knicks at plus 1,000. Those are tied for the 4th best odds. You know that Tom Thibodeau is going to be motivated to win every game his team plays. So why not? New York Knicks plus 1,000.
Love it. The defending champs of the NBA Cup, the NBA in-season tournament, are plus 2,600. So this may just be the thing that LeBron wins for the rest of his career. I like those odds a lot. You got to go with the defending Western Conference champions as well, especially since we just had Tim McMahon on the pod. Shout out to Dallas. They are plus 1,800. I'm tired of you doubting Luka Doncic, John Macri. Plus 1,800 for the Dallas Mavericks. I just love the value bet there.
Okay. I think those are 2 pretty good bets. Again, presented by BetUS. Use the link in the description and get 125% deposit bonus up to $2,000 for your first 3 deposits. Gambling involved risks. Please only gamble with funds that you can afford to lose. All forms of betting carry financial risk, and it is down to the individual to make bets with or without the assistance of information provided. We start the playoffs. Game 1 against the Cavs. To quote Amanda Dommins, the greenest of greens. I don't remember a single other thing he did in this game other than the shot. And that is because I was hosting some people in our building over to watch the game. And I was losing my shit the whole game, but I was not in my normal state of being when I'm by myself watching basketball games. And then the shot.
Back to Josh Hart. Shot clock at 4. Now at 3. Hart, 3-pointer. Bang! Josh Hart from downtown as the shot clock expired.
The first thing that comes to mind is that shot. And it's funny that it kind of now blurs into what shots that he made in this year's playoffs because it felt extremely unique when it happened. Obviously, it's game 1. Now we look back on the Cleveland series as a joke, but that game was super tight. It was game 1. Our playoff experience was basically the Atlanta series in the Tibbs era. That didn't go well. And that shot got, they don't win that series in 5. Obviously they made, who knows how that series goes if that shot doesn't go in. I mean, that set the whole tone for the series to come. And it was just a classic Josh Hart. If he was wide open, he wouldn't have made it. But because it was shot clock dwindling, he has to take a dribble and shoot it. Of course, it went in.
A lot more time than I realized when he made that. I remember they were down 149 to go when he made that shot. And then Mitchell missed a 3, and then Brunson hit a 2 to put them up 4. And that was when everybody kind of breathed.
Yeah.
Oh, Andrew.
Well, so the way you guys are describing the end of that game with the shot being the most important thing, a reminder, the Cavs scored 97 points this game. Like the defense all around was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I remember Josh Hart's defense on Donovan Mitchell throughout the night. He was
Great
there.
call.
Him and Grimes were largely their point of
That's
attack defenders. And I don't have to tell either of you how important Emmanuel Quickley was during the regular season. Well, deer in headlights in the first half of this game. So it was weird not seeing Emmanuel Quickley on the floor in the fourth quarter. Knicks are up by 8 with a minute left. And unfortunately, the Cavs go on a 9-0 run. They were up 92-84. And the Cavs go on a 9-0 run. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, like we had this great experience. And then it got pooped away at the end. And that's when Josh Hart hit the 3, and it was a broken play where, it wasn't a play call for Josh Hart to hit a 3.
No,
just, they were playing really good defense, and they were like, all right, we'll live with a Josh Hart 3, and he made it.
Yep. And to your point, like the offense was so bogged down. And look, the Cleveland didn't score in that series. They were an excellent defensive team, and they still are. And Knicks had no answers. Like the offense looked terrible. It was basically Brunson trying to break down everybody down the stretch of the game, and he gets kicked out to Hart, and like it's just one of these shots that he makes.
Yeah,
he just does. He has a knack for it, and he made it.
Are you about to read the box score, John?
Well, I'll get to the box score in a second. I want to point out at the beginning of the fourth quarter, the Knicks went into the fourth quarter with an 8-point lead. Josh Hart opened the scoring with a 2-pointer a jump shot, because it's from 11 feet. And then he scored the second basket of the quarter after an offensive rebound. And then the third basket of the quarter came after another Josh Hart offensive rebound. So he was responsible for kind of getting them started in that fourth quarter. And then obviously the shot. You want to read the box score, Andrew?
Well, so we mentioned the creation that Brunson had to try and muster up throughout the Cavs defense, the number 1 ranked defense in the league that year. And he goes 11 of 24. Randall, this is a surprise game that he played in, because 3 weeks earlier, he had just sprained his ankle severely, and nobody knew he was going to play until a report right before the game that Julius Randle is going to warm up and start for the Knicks. And his job, as we talked about with DJ, John, was just go bring Evan Mobley over there. So they really needed like creation from a third place. And we all thought it was going to be Quickley. And eventually, as the series went on, we became RJ. But Josh Hart, 8 of 11 from the field. And none of it was like, we're going to call plays and run ISO for Josh Hart, but opportunistic in his shots. The guy ends up with 17 points off the bench. The second most field goals made by a Knick that night was Josh Hart, who had that on their bingo card going into a playoff game. And obviously the biggest shot of the night. And for that playoff run, it kickstarted what it potentially became with the rest of this Cavs series.
So speaking to the rest of the Cavs series, so game 2 was awful game by everybody involved. Game 3 was more about the crowd won, and then Brunson and RJ in some order, even though Hart did have a nice game. So game 4 was his highest scoring game of the series. He had 19 points, 7 rebounds, went 7 of 16 from the field. So not that efficient, but he was big. And before we talk about game 4, I want to mention game 5 only scored 4 points, but you were talking about the crazy stat lines, Benji, 12 rebounds, and he played 46 minutes and 46 seconds in a 48-minute game, which at that point we thought, wow, that's a lot of minutes. And before we realized that, like, no, that's actually nothing because he got to sit for a minute and 14 seconds. That was a career high in minutes played for Josh Hart in Game 5, which is the clinching game. Benji, either Game 4 or Game 5, which of these takes the cake for you? I'm assuming it's going to be Game 4.
Yeah, I'm thinking Game 4, and I'm trying to recall. Grimes is out with a shoulder. When did he go out?
And he went out in Game 4. This is an infamous game an important game for Quentin Grimes in his relationship with Tom Thibodeau, unfortunately. Because he refused to play, reportedly, John, shout out Fred Katz of The Athletic. Because he refused to play, Tibbs then was like, oh, you're not ready to play a playoff game. And that's when the tide started to shift toward, I mean, they went out and got DiVincenzo, and Josh Hart was like, this was the soundbite for Wired for Sound, where Josh Hart was like, I'll play all 48 if you want me to. And then Tibbs turned around and said, all right, get back in. And didn't come out for the rest of the series.
Right. So, the fact that he steps into the starting lineup in Game 4, which I recall being worrisome because the spacing was already tight and the Cavs cover a lot of ground. And although he didn't make a ton of threes, he made one, but obviously provided enough offensively to give them just, what they need. I mean, again, they held the Cavs to 93. They score 102, which is plenty in the game like that. But yeah, if there's a Hall of Fame game in here, I would give it to Game 4. What about you?
Andrew?
So of Game 4 and Game 5, we're talking about?
Yeah.
I would yellow both of these, but if we're picking one, I would yellow Game 4. And it's really for one moment, not the him singing Living on a Prayer or whatever the Journey song was. The Don't Stop Believing. I just remember him singing, and it's like, oh, this is I'm stressed out so much, and he's just singing on the sidelines with whatever the Garden is playing. This entire series is a Mitchell Robinson series, and I don't know if you guys remember the moment that Brunson hit a big three to put them up 8 or 9 with a couple minutes left or a minute or so left, but the sequence to get it was the Knicks missed the three. I forget who missed it. And both Mobley and Allen are boxing out Mitchell Robinson. Josh Hart gets the rebound, puts it out to Brunson at the top of the paint, and hits a big three. And it's like, Mitchell Robinson has become the most important player in this series, and it's not something I expected.
Yeah, you're talking, and that Brunson three in the last 2 minutes of Game 4, that came after 6 consecutive points by Josh Hart. Josh Hart also hit 2 free throws at the end that were essentially the nail in the coffin. So yeah, let's yellow Game 4. I don't want to skip past the Miami series. Do we need to talk about the Miami series where Josh Hart is concerned?
Well, Game 2 would be the one.
That would be the one. I have a yellow, but I get the spirit, John.
Game 2 would be the one.
What do you want to say about Game 2?
He ends up with 14, 11, and 9. They win the game. He's starting over Grimes at this stage, very controversially so. Yeah. But in this game, he played a very, very solid game in the second round of the playoffs. So the color of the entire Miami series was they were ignoring Josh Hart to clog up the lane against Randall and Brunson and making it extremely difficult. So in that game, Brunson got off anyway and had 30 and on 19 shots, and Hart ended up with 14 on 11 shots, hit 2 threes to loosen it up a bit, and 11 rebounds and 9 assists. Nothing to sneeze at. So, I think it's certainly a yellow.
It's yellowed. And I think we could leave it at that. Also, I am fairly certain, other than the Clipper game they got ejected from, and he may have even played more minutes in that game, his lowest minute total as a Knick was the 9 minutes and 3 seconds he played in the other Knick win of that series, which was in Game 5.
Do you guys remember the 2 threes that he hit in said Game 2 win?
I don't. I'm sure you do, though.
So Benji points to the controversy of the lineup that had no space. And Tibbs makes a really nice sub in the fourth quarter and putting Grimes in for RJ. And I remember the Benji film thread the next day pointing out how much space there were, because how the Heat were guarding Quentin Grimes compared to RJ or Josh Hart. And so because now the Heat have to pay more attention to either Grimes in the corner or Grimes above the break, there's now a connecting pass available to Josh Hart in the corner, and he hits 2 corner threes down the stretch. Both of his threes came when the better spacing lineup was there. And it's why for the Knicks had that weird second round schedule that happens to only one series, where it's like you play Tuesday, then you play Saturday. Like you get an extra 3 days off. And for 3 days, it was like, as long as we go back to the quick Grimes lineup, we'll be fine. And what happens on Saturday? Josh Hart is starting. And it's like, oh, okay.
For one more game. And then
for one more game. And then by then, the Heat had kind of figured it became more of a Julius Randle series at that point. But yeah, the 2 threes that he hit were when there were more space out there. I'm fine yellowing this and just moving on to a much better Josh Hart season.
Yes, which is the 23-24 season. Now, Josh Hart, it may be difficult to remember, started off season atrociously. So, Benji, I shared you in on my stars of the game spreadsheet where I kept track of. So, in my newsletter, I award 3 stars of the game to the best player, 2 stars, 1 star, and occasionally I'll give an honorable mention. Josh Hart did not log anything. No 3-star games, no 2-star games, no 1-star games, no honorable mentions for the first until the Charlotte game at home. What was this game like? I'll look it up. Game 17. Now, I'm not going to say that Josh Hart did nothing in the first 16 games of the season, but like, it wasn't pretty.
It was downright nasty. It's crazy. It is crazy to think about that. For all the talk about all the minutes that he played, and how he was playing 25 minutes or so a game through the first.
I have it right now. It was for the first 16 games of the season. I'll give it to you. Or excuse me. Yes. No, 12 games of the season. Sorry, I don't know why. Or unless I'm getting my... No. Sorry, it was the first 16 games of the season. He was averaging... Here we go. Took me a while. 28 minutes, 7 points, 42.2% from the field, 28.6% from 3 on 3.1 attempts a game. That was that.
No, it was very bad. It was very, very, very bad. And there was much discourse.
The discourse did indeed exist. Yes.
There was discourse out there.
Who might people have wanted to play over Josh Hart, Benji? Did you got any names you throw out there? Or?
I believe he was deported.
Quite literally deported. Wow.
You
sent him north of the border. Okay. Yes.
North of the wall.
Yeah.
Well, then he has his first big game of the season is a blowout of the lowly Hornets, in which he has 17 points, takes 10 shots. I don't remember where in this chain of events was the interview about where he said the quote about his usage, but it was somewhere.
Oh, that's right. He was also complaining, making jokes.
Yeah, it was all nonsense. It was just nonsense heaped upon nonsense. Whatever.
It's why the funny part is we recognize it now as Josh Hart nonsense, and he's complaining about being a backup 4. It's like, I'm not a 4, I'm a wing. Damn it, I'm a 2. And like Tibbs never took it seriously because you're not supposed to take Josh Hart seriously. No. But then you have a week toward around where we're talking about the Quentin Grimes comments, where he's actually having a legitimate frustration of like the ball feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds, and it got looped into this Tibbs criticism, and it's like you got Josh Hart complaining, you have Quentin Grimes complaining. It's like whoa. We have Quentin Grimes complaining. Like whatever Josh Hart is doing doesn't matter. Let's calm down right now. So we're not putting the Charlotte game in. All due respect to
absolutely
the Hornets.
Not.
No, he has another pretty decent game, another 17-point outing against the Raptors in Toronto.
3 for 4.
I just remember that because what's that?
Yeah, the shot came around. I mean, he's starting, it's warming up a little bit. 3 for 4 from 3 that day.
Yep. Hit 3 or 4 from 3. It was the first time. Well, actually, no, a couple games. So in the Charlotte game, he hit 2 of 3 from 3. So yeah, the shot's starting to come around, and then actually after he had another decent game, albeit in what was a blowout loss to the Bucks in Milwaukee. That was the in-season tournament game that we watched.
That was the one. Was that the one where Randall was trying to ISO Giannis like 4 times in a row?
No. That was
the first game.
That was the first IST game where Brunson had 100 points, but Randall was 5 of 20.
Right.
This one was the game Randall barely missed, but
that's right. Yeah,
you said this to DJ. If you told me the Bucks made 50 of 53s, I would.
Oh my God, that's the game, right? Like Beauchamp and AJ Green. There's raining them from everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes, I recall.
Bingo.
Lost to Boston, win against Toronto, which again notable because he went 3 for 3 from 3. Although
16, 7, and 8. Nice stat line.
16, 7, and 8. Again, we got a lot coming up, so that this is not going in either. 5-game road trip, Jazz, Suns, Clippers. The Clippers game is when you get ejected for saying some choice words to the ref.
So the Clipper game is significant in this road trip. Because look at his box score from 3 in the other games he actually played on the road trip. He went 0-4 in Utah, 0-3 in the Phoenix game, 0-3 against the Lakers, and the only game he didn't go 0-4 or 0-3 from, he didn't play in because he got ejected. So it's almost as if he was slumping so much that he was like, you know what, I need to bust the slump.
And this was the Clippers when they started going off, right?
Very much so.
They look like a true contender that night, and then they looked it all.
Yeah, that was one of those games where it's like, oh man, we're not on the same level as
right. Yeah, and then look where they ended up. It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm looking here. I don't know how much fine tooth comb we want to go through the next December with. Like he has a couple games here and there. I'm kind of comfortable fast forward to
the OG era, please.
To the OG era.
I didn't write down a single game from before the trade personally.
Nope, me neither.
Okay. So after the trade, what is the first post-trade Josh Hart game that you guys remember? Or
Philly.
That stands out to you? I will ask you that.
Philly.
The Philly game
is plus 46.
Yes, the plus 46.
John just remembered it.
I mean, that game is so memorable just in general as like we've arrived game, but yeah,
so
plus 46.
10 points.
I need people to, when you just rewind your YouTubes real quick, because the beauty of what happened to John right now. I wish I was you in that moment, because you're like the Philly game and it just came upon you. You remembered the Philly game and your face got so happy. I've never seen you that happy. It was like, the Philly game. Yes.
But here's the thing about the Philly game. They were all so good in that game that Josh Hart, he was actually my third leading guy. I gave my 3-star award to Isaiah Hartenstein because of what he did. I thought he did an exceptional job against Joel Embiid and scored quite a few points against Embiid. And then Brunson, because I guess Brunson did Brunson things. And then Josh Hart was third in line, although I probably could have put Josh Hart first just as easy.
He did have 15 rebounds in this game.
This feels like maybe a pretty strong yellow.
A yellow. Yeah.
Strong yellow.
It's the first yellow I put down. Yeah.
Okay. So plus 46. That's
plus 46. That's what I remember from that.
That's a Hall of Fame plus minus. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. It's one of the highest in NBA history. I'm pretty sure it might have even been the record. I think there was one or two higher than it though, but fouled that up the very next game with a plus 24 against the Wizards. And yeah, I mean, the Knicks are rolling. He's not really, again, over the course of the legendary January that hopefully we're not telling our grandkids about. Hopefully it becomes distant memory, soon.
I also hope we're not just telling our kids about this random month after what just happened this offseason.
I mean, if something has gone terribly wrong if that's the case.
Oh my God.
We're watching scenario. Cooper Flag on the Nets with a pick that they got from the Knicks trade. We're like, kids, let me tell you about the Knicks in January 2024.
I mean,
it was cold outside.
Yeah. We had an Anunoby.
Any other games before the Randall and OG injuries that you want to shout out or give consideration to?
Not for Josh Hart, no.
No. Agreed.
Okay. He was very good, by the way, in the Miami game that they both got hurt.
But the whole team was playing. He was doing his. In some ways, it's funny. In some ways, this is the ideal Josh Hart month. Like, it's
the role he should be on an NBA.
Yes, correct. He's playing pretty much 25 to 30 minutes.
Yep.
He's doing his thing, making positive contributions, rebounding the heck out of the ball, making some plays, running the break, like not relied on too heavily where the shooting becomes like this. You don't want Josh Hart Hall of Fame games if you're the Knicks. You want Josh Hart to be doing exactly what he did in January. It's just kind of a funny thing. And we can appreciate the brilliance of Josh Hart in some of these games where he rises to the occasion when he's most needed. But really, the beauty of Josh Hart is what he did in this January month.
Yeah.
He's putting up whatever, 10, 8, and 5. Perfect.
Yeah. And funny enough, in the 9-game winning streak that they had in January, the only 2 games that were close, the last win of the streak, which was the Brunson game against the Pacers, and a Washington game early on in the streak, which was the only game. Actually, is this the only game that Josh Hart as a Knick has not played it? Because he played in every game. What?
He might have had a game or two at the end of the.
No,
I can go look. You might be.
I'll
right.
double check right now. I'm pretty sure he played in every game his first season, but double check that for me. This is
you're right.
The only, so this is the only game Josh Hart has ever missed as a Knick, and against a dreadful Washington team. They only beat them by 4 because Josh Hart didn't play. Moving on. They lose to the Lakers. They beat the Grizzlies in talk about it. You want to talk about a game that I never want to think of again.
Oh,
that was
GG. Was that GG going nuts?
That was there were a few Memphis hit some threes in that game, if I recall correctly. They were.
I think GG Jackson went crazy, and they competed. Yep,
they did compete. The Dallas game where we didn't have any players, so Josh Hart that game actually had he had a triple double. A 23-point, 12 assist, 10 rebound triple double for Josh Hart in a game that was never like they made Luka try at the end of the game. Like he remember Luka had to come back in the game. That was the thing about that.
That was the win. That was the win.
Luka had to come back in. Yeah.
I remember Dante DiVincenzo had the most fun of his life because he was absolutely chucking, man. He was chucking. But he was chucking in ways I've never seen him chuck before. It was legendary chucking.
Josh Hart took 22 shots this night.
36 points on 26 shots.
26 shots, baby.
Only 12 threes. Only 12 threes. Deuce McBride. If Deuce McBride could have hit a 3 in this game, they might have won. He was 2.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And Hart had the triple double. How about this? Hart played the 4th most minutes in that game behind McBride, DiVincenzo, and Achua. Only played 38 minutes and 51 seconds, he says. Okay. I think I'm trying to think when should we just keep going along because it's about to get pretty interesting. So Indiana lost. They didn't have anybody on their team that night. That was the trade deadline, post-trade deadline game. So the Dallas game and the Pacers game, they didn't have anybody on their team for either of those. And now we're getting close to the All-Star break, the Houston game where they got robbed. At the end by that
travesty. And he had a very good game in that game, Josh Hart.
He did have a very good game.
Travesty of a game. Don't want to talk about it ever again.
We're together for that one on playback. Yeah.
Horrific.
That was a very good Josh Hart game. And then the Orlando game before the All-Star break, which was no Brunson and no DiVincenzo.
No, Brunson played. It was no Hartenstein or DiVincenzo.
No Hartenstein.
Brunson was really good, and then he was playing like that starting 5. I believe had a Daquan Jeffries and maybe a top end in it. I don't know. I remember Brunson being really good. It's like, oh well, if he's gonna score 50, we have a chance. But then the second half happened.
So they come out of the All-Star break, and I'm looking at it now. Again, it's my silly ranking system in my newsletter, but in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the next 11 games, Josh Hart receives either 1, 2, or 3 stars of the game, including 4 games in which he receives the top honor of 3 stars. So let's get into this. So we have the Philly game out of the break at Philly. He has 18 and 12 in that game. I don't think this is going in. I still remember this as the bogey game, as the where Bogey scored like I don't know how many points in like the second quarter.
The bogey game.
It was a bogey game. It's the bogey game.
Remember when Bojan Bogdanovic played on the Knicks, Benji?
Yeah,
that was the thing that happened.
Great.
Yeah, ended up being important. He was the salary in the Mikal Bridges trade.
Surely there's a Elfrid Payton game out there too.
When we get to the play, you'll be on here when we do the Alec Burks Hall of Fame. Don't worry.
That I'm in for. Just get someone else for bogey.
Yeah.
No, we're not the Bogey Hall of Fame. We'll leave it to a different podcast. Okay, then we got the Boston game that they lost. Valiant effort for 2.5 quarters, and then it was just too much. Okay, then we have. I think this is a green.
Oh,
in a game that should not have been this close. At the very end, they found themselves in a freaking dogfight with the team that Benjy. I mean, it was a cottage industry for Benjy to make potty jokes about this team, comparing them to different things that come out of your body. The Pistons, and yet, the Pistons almost beat the Knicks.
Brunson looking, guarded by Cunningham. Fontecchio looking to help. Brunson, 3-pointer, off the mark, rebound deflected, chased down, saved by Grimes to Fontecchio, knocked away. Hartenstein picks it up, out to DiVincenzo. 10 seconds ago, he throws it away. Ball loose, picked up by Brunson. Brunson inside to Hart. Harts banks it in, and a foul! Knicks take the lead. Monty Williams is furious. He thought a foul should have been called. There was so much contact. But Josh Hart with the big bucket and a free throw coming out.
I didn't have this as a green. I had it as a yellow.
You want to do yellow? We can do yellow for it.
It's up there.
It has to be up there.
And it's like this grind part of the season where he's just dragging them to some wins and results.
His stat line in that game, by the way, 23 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, made 3 of 5 from deep. So, it's he has the stat line to justify it as a potential
and the clutch play and the clutch play. Okay. We continue. Pelicans, they got they couldn't do anything against the Pelicans last year. Nope.
Not a
crunched both times.
Yeah. Then was the Warriors game, known for the fact that they scored 2 points in the first, I think the first half.
Just playing Precious at the 4, baby. Precious at the 4 with Josh Hart at the 3, and hoping that the Warriors forget that nobody could shoot. Good times.
So this is not going to go in because it was kind of a dispiriting night. It was up until this point Josh Hart's season high in rebounds. He had 18 rebounds in this Warriors game. And it was also the start of another trend that would become something of a talking point moving forward. Josh Hart in this game played 47 minutes and 10 seconds in a regular season basketball game in February.
This is 5th straight game of 40 plus minutes at this point. That streak would continue.
That streak will continue for another week.
Yeah.
Okay. Benjy, what's your favorite shade of green?
Oh yeah.
Is it? I like a good neon green myself. I do like a neon green. I mean that. Whatever your favorite shade of green is, you could apply it to this next game. This is the game in Cleveland where Jalen Brunson played 47 seconds. Most of those were spent attempting to limp off the court after he no longer had use of one of his legs. And the Knicks somehow won this basketball game. And in the game, Josh Hart, talk about Josh Hart's stat lines, 13 points, 19 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 1 flip of the old gold chain, silver chain, platinum chain. I don't know what it was.
Hart, deep three, good! Right in front of the Cavalier bench, and a tap on the chest of Donovan Mitchell.
The skip out, Mobley's got the closeout, creates a little bit of space with the sidestep. That outfoot strap 7-footer right there forces you to get the ball up in the air. I mean, that is just a tough shot.
Then a little love tap for Spider.
Just the Josh Hart game of Josh Hart games. Benji, you want to go first on this one?
This is the green of Jalen Brunson's like green sneakers that he wears a lot. The super bright green. That's green.
Great.
That's the green. That's
great.
the green. Yeah, I had this one. This is one of the A pluses that I've given Josh Hart since he became a Knick.
Wow.
This game was an A plus. It is a lock.
Yeah. Andrew?
I forgot. Benji, it's been such a long off season. I forgot we could have just used your grades as a
yeah. You know
I was like really thankful for John's star ratings.
I don't have a good tracking system though. Maybe this year I'll institute one. So it's hard to you have to look back. I have to actually like type in the date and find it.
Yeah. Well,
you didn't see his text?
You missed this one because we jumped on before you. I took a nap before this and it led right up to like 5 minutes before we were supposed to log on is when I woke up. So it was very clearly like I was going to jump on, but yeah, look, it's one of the regular season games that I wrote down as a green. So I'll go Jets green as my shade.
Jets green.
Oh God.
I'm sorry. I won't mention other teams.
Like the nasty new Jet uniform green or like the decent old
school one. Although I do like the new version of the uniform, but I'm with you, and I think most Jet fans are with you on the new uniforms, the Nike uniforms. So slander away, Benji.
Thank you.
This was also Josh's third triple-double in a span of 35 days. He had not previously had a triple-double since he was a senior in college. So he was making a habit of this at this point. Okay. Next up is a loss against the Hawks, where no Brunson. That was kind of a bit of a come-down game.
But tied it in the fourth quarter because Josh Hart. That's why the Pelican game from the week earlier, the day after the game-winning shot against Detroit, there was also like, we tied it in the fourth quarter because this team, with Josh Hart leading the charge, doesn't stop fighting.
If I recall, DeJounte went off in this game, right?
Yep, he did.
Yeah.
This was a DeJounte game. It's not going in. Okay. Next up, we have Brunson returns. They beat the Orlando Magic. They destroy the Orlando Magic. That felt good. Josh Hart did have 19 points in that game. He is, by the way, the streak of 40-minute games continues with this. It continues the next game, which 43 minutes against Philadelphia. That was the KFS outing game. What a glorious time that was. We could move right on.
Getting to see Precious at the floor spacing in real time, Benji. Like in front of us.
Wonderful.
That game was atrocious.
The worst game.
You did the post game. Yeah.
That was the ugliest game of the season. 79-73. Shoot me in the head.
Yeah. Lowest scoring game of like in a long time in the NBA.
Oh, it's disgusting.
They did follow it up against same team, same building, 27-point resounding comeback win against the Sixers the next game. Josh Hart only played 39 minutes and 4 seconds in that game, but had I think this should I don't know if it's going to be in. We have to yellow it. 20 points, 19 rebounds.
I greened it.
You greened it.
Greened it.
I greened it.
Okay.
This is an absurd performance. He was unbelievable in this game.
Okay. I like it. I like it. I'm down for it.
This was an absurd performance. And the 40-minute streak ended only because he came out because it was a blowout. That's the only reason it ended at 39. He had 39 minutes because he was removed from a blowout. He played 39. So shouldn't even count. But he was tremendous.
So let's screen it. And we could always take it out later. But I'm going to green it. So right now we only have 5 greens. So I think we're doing pretty good. Okay, continuing along. I think we may be able to get through the rest of the regular season with maybe one more.
But I got one more green.
Okay, I think I got one more green. All right, let's keep going. He had a really good game against a dreadful Portland team. The Portland team that this was Was this his return to Portland? The Portland game they played the previous season, was that in Portland or in New York?
That was in Portland. The end of a road trip.
Whatever. The Blazers stink, so nobody cares. They beat the Kings in Sacramento. Nice game, nothing crazy. And then I'm looking at this. He played all 48 minutes against the Golden State Warriors.
Yep. Deuce played 47, I believe.
Yeah, Deuce played 47 and chased Steph around the entire game and played 47. And magnificent job.
So Josh Hart in that game shot 5 for 18, but he had a triple-double. He had 10 points, 11 rebounds, 11 assists.
0 for 6 from 3.
0 for 6 from 3. Should we consider this?
No.
Okay. I mean, it's 48 minutes. That's the only reason I say that. They lost then in Denver. Why do I remember nothing about that game?
I also don't remember that game.
They made it a 2-point game in the fourth quarter. What? I don't remember who it was without. They had officially switched to the Josh Hart because Anunoby didn't play. So they had switched to the Josh Hart at the 4, Deuce in the starting 5.
That's right. Because
by then.
Yes.
Because they did that for the Warrior game.
Okay. Brooklyn game, that was more a DiVincenzo game than I think anything else.
Not Deuce?
Maybe Deuce too. But again, nice Josh Hart game, followed by yet another triple-double. I think this is now the 5th triple-double. 11 points, 10 assists, 14 rebounds. That is a 25-point win against Detroit. It's Detroit, so all due respect to them. Then they had a 44-point victory against the Raptors. That happened.
Toronto. Yeah.
Toronto's not a great end to their season. Lost to Wemby in San Antonio. That was the Brunson game. Lost to OKC in what was a freaking heartbreaker. He had 15 rebounds in that game. I mean, you just look at the rebounding totals down the stretch of the season. It's wild. Really rough performance from him against Miami. I'm looking at this. He had 2 points, only took 3 shots. This game does not stand out to me.
I do recall thinking though, like Miami's just they're in his head a little bit because they just play off him more aggressively than most, and Golden State does as well, which is why I think he struggled against them too. Like the teams that really ignore him, actually, I think get in his head. So Miami qualifies.
And then Benji, I am guessing this is the other green for you.
This was amazing. I was at this game, and this is the green. So I was at this game. I'll tell you the stat line quickly. He's 14 for 19 from the field. He had 31, 9, and 8 with 2 steals. The Knicks started this game terribly. And then when the second half they came alive, the Garden swelled in a very unique way that only kind of the Garden can, and the noise was unbelievable. And so Sacramento's sending this blitz, and the Knicks kind of figure out, you know what, if we just scream with Josh Hart and they blitz every time, and Josh Hart's going to be going downhill against Sabonis, who's not a rim protector, rotating over, and he's going to be 3-on-2, 4-on-3 going downhill, and he can either finish or pass out. And he did it. I really want to say like they completed like 8 straight plays like that with Josh Hart just catching in the pocket and making a play, either scoring or passing. And you see it in the numbers. He ends up with 31 points and 8 assists. It was just an unbelievable performance, taking advantage of a scheme and personnel that Sacramento doesn't really have. But the game was awesome, and he was awesome. And so it's a green for me.
I'm cool having it as a green. Andrew, did you know these 31 points tied the second highest scoring total of Josh Hart's career? Do you want to wager a guess as to how many points he scored in his career high?
47.
You're close. 44. He scored 44 points in a game against Washington in March of 2022 when he was with the Blazers. 15-21 from the field, 6-9 from 3, and 8 for 8 from the line. How you doing?
If you would have said guess the month and guess the opponent for a 47-point game by Josh Hart, I very well might have said March against Washington.
44, but who's counting? Okay. He follows up that Kings game by going scoreless in 11 minutes versus the Bulls. Why did he only play 11 minutes?
He got ejected. This is when he kicked someone in the head, and Scott Foster was this is a yellow for me because it's part of the Josh Hart experience.
After review, the foul's been upgraded to a flagrant foul penalty 2, resulting in the ejection of Josh Hart. There was excessive foot to head contact that resulted in this ejection. Due to the ejection, the technical foul has been rescinded because you cannot penalize after an ejection. Green will shoot 2, though, retain possession of the ball, and we'll play on from there.
Miami Heat fans are in our mentions being like, oh, look at the dirty player, Josh Hart, because we had called Bam a dirty player 3 days earlier. And Josh Hart gets ejected, and then, as only Josh Hart can, knowing he just kicked someone in the head, Scott Foster comes over to him after ejecting him or giving him the double flagrant. Scott's just like, Josh, I have to eject you. You kicked him in the head. It's like, what do you mean?
Yeah, so. I remember that. I thought that was an absurd objection, but okay. That was the Bulls game. They end the season on a 5-game winning streak. Josh Hart has a lot of very nice games. Chicago 17-13. Chicago. Yeah. Boston 16-16. That was that resounding win in the Boston Garden where they just played so well.
That game was awesome.
It was such a fun game. And Brooklyn, he had a really good game too. Was one of their better players against the Nets. I don't think we have to talk about any of these. We could skip to the playoffs. Okay,
we can.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm very fond of that final Chicago game. Very fond.
As am I.
The last game of the season,
not because of Josh Hart, just because it existed. And I enjoy competition. It was great competition. Okay,
yeah,
continue.
That was great competition. All right, so we're in a good spot, I think, where we may not need to go back to our yellows because we have 6 right now. And I wonder if there aren't 4 games in this playoff stretch. So let's get to it. I think we start off with a green against the Philadelphia 76ers. Game 1, he finishes the game with 22 points, 13 rebounds, 2 assists, and how many made threes in the fourth quarter?
In the fourth quarter, he made 3. He made 4 for the game.
3 threes in the fourth quarter of this game.
Yeah, 13 points in the fourth quarter for Josh Hart, including the 2 big threes down the stretch to put the game out of reach.
Brunson with 7 to shoot. Cross court to Hart. Josh Hart, a 3-pointer. Puts it in! Josh Hart, some clutch 3-pointers. And it's back to a 6-point game. Shot clock at 4. Hart fakes. Hart tries another 3-pointer. Oh, it's good! Knocks down another!
Just absolutely one of the most astounding things that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Benji, are you good with this as a green?
Green
it? Okay.
And I didn't, there are some parts of this game that I didn't love how Josh Hart played.
That's true.
And yet I give him I green it because the fourth quarter was what it was.
Yes. Which brings us to game 2.
I also have this as a green, so
I don't know how else we're supposed to do it. I think they both need to be in. And the only thing I remember about this game is that I was at the game, and I saw Fred was obviously covering it, and I went down to see him at halftime, and we were both like, Josh Hart. That's all we had to say. We just looked at each other and were just like, Josh Hart. It's the only reason they were in the game. There were some obviously things that happened in the fourth quarter that led to them winning in the game, but they would have never been in this one without Josh Hart. I think it's up there for the best half of basketball he's played in his career, right? First half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
19 points and 4 made threes. Yeah. 19 and 9 in the first half.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't great in the second half. But the first half was what it was. It's a game 2 win. It stamps the series. You're in a great spot now. And he played all 48. So
yes, leading to.
Yeah. And I actually think I can't remember if it was after game 1 or game 2 that they switched. It might have at some point. I wish my memory was better. They switched. They started the series with Anunoby chasing Maxey around, and then they switched to Hart chasing Maxey around, and then they switched to DiVincenzo later in the series. I just don't remember exactly which game. Was it after game 1 or game 2? And
it was after game 3.
After game 3, after the loss. Right.
Remember they ran that same play in the third quarter to like Maxey through the Lowry screen and the Embiid screen.
Yes.
And then you get Hart switching onto him in game 4. They only scored 94 points.
That's right. And then game 5, they get exposed again, and then they switch to DiVincenzo for the last game.
Because now they're doubling down onto Embiid, but now Maxey's going off. And then, like you said, DiVincenzo's now chasing him around. Nurse counters with Buddy Hield, which actually worked.
Yeah,
and just hit him on the weak side. We're now turning this into X's and O's. Game 3 is not a Josh Hart game.
No,
I
well,
only have one
actually,
other Josh Hart game for this series.
It's not going in. He had 20 points for the third consecutive game. I had him as the best player in the game in game 3. But they lost the game and it's not going in.
You just take the play. He's unbelievable. The guy comes into the playoffs.
Yep.
He's what he is as a shooter. First 3 games, 4 for 8 from 3, 4 for 7 from 3, 4 for 8 from 3. It's just crazy.
It's absurd. it defies explanation, defies logic.
John, do you know how many? I know we were pressed for time. I'm sorry. You keep trying to push. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Do you know how many times he had 4 threes in a game that season before the playoffs?
I mean, I could look it up.
No, it's a trivia question. I'm asking you to guess.
3.
0. His first time making 4 threes in a game was game 1, game 2, and game 3 of the Sixers series.
Totally outrageous.
Yes.
Wild. Okay. Game 4, he comes back down to earth. Doesn't make a shot, actually.
Has 17 rebounds.
17 rebounds.
Does have 17 rebounds, including 5 on the offensive glass.
Yeah.
But that's not going in. Game 5, I mean, they play. It's 53 minutes of basketball was played in Game 5, and of those 53 minutes, Josh Hart played 53 of the minutes. It was not a great Josh Hart game. 53 minutes in a 53-minute game.
Unfortunately, his contribution to that game is a missed free throw that kept it a 3-point game. A 3-point game in the last 20 seconds that allowed Maxey to hit a half-court shot to tie it.
Maxey was terrifying.
Yes, he was.
That dude is going to terrify me for as long as he plays professional basketball. Game 6.
Green.
Benji?
I had it as a yellow.
Interesting.
But maybe it should be green.
Interesting.
Maybe it should be.
Why a yellow? Well, I want to hear it. Why a yellow?
Man, I don't know.
Because so much of it is the shot.
When I think of the game, I mean, he does make the scramble from right in the corner to get the ball, right? So he's part of that play. I don't know. It's probably a green. It's a green. It's a green. It's a green.
It's the series clinching shot.
Brunson double team right away. Hart has it. Gives it right back to Brunson. Brunson drives. Kicks it up top to Hart. Hart puts up a 3. Bang! Josh Hart from downtown. And the Knicks lead by 3. Timeout Philadelphia.
This isn't in like, what are we doing?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay. Now I think it's actually going to get tough. So I had only one more 3-star performance for Josh Hart for the playoffs, and it was game 1 against the Indiana Pacers.
Green.
24 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists, hit the only 3 he took, 9 of 13 from the field, edged out a close win.
40 minutes.
Played 48 minutes. Did not sit.
First 2 games, 48.
48 and 48.
I had both game 1 and game 2 in.
Me too.
So that's
I have 1 and 2 in as well. Those are the only 2 I have in as greens, but those are the 2.
And game 2 was the game where Reggie came back to the place he owned, and Josh Hart went over to his mic and told him,
What do you think Jay Wright is saying? Yeah. Right? It's my boys. They said fuck you. Josh Hart coming over.
That's the moment that I'll remember the most from game 2.
yeah. They also had 19, 15, and 7.
Jesus.
You know,
In 48 minutes, 8 of 12 from the field.
So that puts us at 11, which is 1 more than we are allowed to have. So we will have to go back and we will have to knock something out. What I will say is I wanted to at least give a shout out to game 7 because
I had same brain. Go ahead.
No human being should have come out of he shouldn't have gotten out of bed, and let alone come to the arena and put on a uniform and attempted to play basketball. And he did. And was he himself? No, he wasn't himself. It obviously wasn't a great game for him. But like the fact that he played the game and played 36 minutes is just, I still to this day don't know how he did it. And he did. So I just wanted to give that shout out. All right.
I initially had it like on the border of in, to be honest. Like
You did?
So there's some regular season games, and that's what I was alluding to earlier. Like, I don't have many regular season moments for Josh Hart. I have like 2 or 3, And then there's like 7 or 8 playoff moments I go to when I think of him.
So we need to eliminate one of the following games. Here we go. The first game, it's a Knick against the Jazz. His second game is a Knick against the Nets. Game 1 against the Cavs. This season, now we're fast forwarding to the season. The Cavs regular season game that they won without Brunson. The Philly game where he had 20, 19, and 10. The Kings game where he had 31 and 8. Game 1 versus Philly. Game 2 versus Philly. Game 6 versus Philly. Game 1 versus the Pacers. Game 2 versus the Pacers. I'll go to you first, Andrew. What are you leaning towards getting out of here? We have to eliminate one.
The second game against Brooklyn. The regular season game.
Benji, what do you say? I'm going to save my answer until I hear from Ben.
Man,
because I think I have a pretty clear answer.
Part of me thinks game 2 Philly, but
part of you thinks game 2 Philly. Okay, game 2 Philly, again, to refresh our recollection, 48 minutes, 21 and 15. And he was awesome.
That first half was special.
Yeah.
But but as Benji pointed out before, he was not great down the stretch.
I don't think about him in that game as much. I know the first half was great, but it's a playoff game. It's hard to measure. I remember those first 2 games about him. That's the thing. It makes it hard for me. Were all about him. Those first 2 games.
The first 2 Philly games or the first 2 games?
No, sorry. The first 2 games of his Knicks career.
Oh, okay.
Those are him. When I think about those games, I think about him.
I think the Utah game represents that, though. A blowout win against the new look Nets isn't as impactful.
I hear you. All right. I can get with moving off Brooklyn on February 13th. I can get there.
Man.
What do you think?
It's cemented. No, because if he has the Utah game and he comes back and he's just so, it's different than if he has the Utah game and then he follows it up with that performance. He didn't even need to do anything the rest of the season. He was cemented as oh my God, this is I
know. I'm with you.
Every New Yorker's wet dream. We finally got this guy that we needed. The only other game, the Kings game's got to be in.
I have it in, but
it's etched in my mind. Yes,
it's etched in your mind. Okay,
yeah. To Benji's point about the short roll, I made this point during the Brunson Hall of Fame. It was also a reminder. Oh, even if you do just double him the whole game, we can beat you 4-on-3.
2019 and 10 is 2019 and 10.
I actually don't have that one in either, but I'm probably over stacked on playoff games, so maybe I'm just valuing that too much.
I will say I think there is a symmetry to having 2 games from each playoff series this year. I think there was something appropriate about that. So
you don't want to put 3 games from the Sixers series, you're saying?
I think the symmetry of 2 Philly games, 2 Pacers games, and 1 Cavs game. So then we also get 5 playoff games, 5 regular season games. His intro to New York was it was so audacious that I think it deserves 2.
Yeah,
I'm outvoted. Okay.
And again, I told the story about at halftime. I think it's so we're eliminating from his Knick Hall of Fame again potentially the best half, and arguably the most important half of his career. But it was the first half. I mean, the alternative, and Benji kind of floated this before, is we don't put Game 6 Philly in,
which is just not happening. Hit the game winning shot.
Yeah, I think that was a bad idea by me.
So we're taking Game 2 Philly out. So without further ado, your Josh Hart Knicks Hall of Fame. His first game against the Jazz, his second game against the Nets, Game 1 against Cleveland, and now fast forward to this year. Cavs win without Jalen Brunson, the chain game. Philly, 2019 and 10. Kings, we scored 31 and just out 8 assists. Game 1 Philly, Game 6 Philly, Game 1 Indiana, Game 2 Indiana. There we go. There's our 10. I feel
hell of a year and a half of Josh Hart.
not bad.
Not bad.
5 playoff games, and there could have easily been another playoff game, if not two more. Because don't forget, I only wrote down 4 yellows. I probably could have written down a few more yellows, but we wrote down game 4 Cavs and game 2 Heat.
Miami, yeah.
The first season. So like, he's the guy that comes up big when it matters most, and for that reason, I think I speak for both these guys when I say I'm very happy that he's on our basketball team. Benji, final thoughts from you?
And he's so funny. He's just a good time. He's just a good time, good vibes. No last thoughts. Thanks for doing this with me, guys. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you for doing it, man. This was great. Now go back and hibernate for the next month or however long you need.
Hopefully healthily. As long as I can just be healthy, I'm good, man.
I know. Andrew?
I echo everything you guys said. Love me some Josh Hart. Looking forward to more Josh Hart, and arguing on behalf of playing Josh Hart with the many in the Knicks masses next season. Ever since he's come here, good things have happened, and I'm excited for many and more good things to happen for the Knicks with him on the court.
Well said. I got nothing to add. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We will, of course, as we always do, we'll be back with more fun and games before you know it. Until then, enjoy your week, and we will talk to you soon. Peace out.
Thank you for tuning in to the Knicks Film School Podcast. This episode was once again presented by BetUS.